Oh my goodness, I'm late this morning. Running a little behind. Just an ADHD moment this morning. I'm like, oh, I'm going to do a live at 8. I set it all up. And lo and behold, um, lo and behold, I got caught up in doing some stuff this morning. Just household stuff that happens. And hey, whatever. But good morning, everybody. Um, let's talk about. Sorry, just getting set up. Usually I'm on much earlier because it takes, I don't know, it takes about 7 minutes or so before people really start showing up. I don't know if that's how long it takes the platforms to let people know that I'm live, but good morning to you. Nice to see you. Just saying I'm a little late this morning, and it's only because I set up the live and then I started doing some stuff around the house. Oh, I gotta turn my light on. Look, my steak oven light. Gotta have that on at the right intensity. If it's too bright, it'll like blow out the screen, but not completely. And then of course Phoebe's like, oh, you're talking, I'm going to show up. Here's Phoebe the cat is coming in. um she's like really insistent on getting some attention this morning. she's been uh she's been all over me this morning, and it's really hot where I am. So a fluffy cat on your lap is a little warm. I do have AC in my office, but I just turned it on, so I might sweat a little bit. That's okay. That's okay. If I look a little darker today, a couple days ago, I went out. My very good friend, who I've known since I was 5, was in town, and his mom lives on a pond, and has since I've known them. So many, many years, almost 50 years. And I went out and spent about 3 hours floating in the pond with him. It was lovely, just a lovely afternoon and a lovely way to catch up. So, anyway, today I'm going to talk about love, one of my favorite topics. Um, Something I talk about a whole lot. You might say, why do you talk about love so much? Because I love love. But I'm going to talk about this not, so often in English. The English word love is weird, and I will talk about that. I've talked about it before, but I'll talk about it a little bit as well. But so if I go, I'm going to talk about love, or if I say to somebody at an inappropriate time, "I love you," people get weirded out by that, and the reason is that we often conflate it with romantic love. And I tell my friends, "I love you, man." I always have to say like, "I love you, man," otherwise it sounds like, they're like, what do you mean by that? Like really strange, like we're not romantic partners or whatever. And so it gets a little bit confusing, but I want to say it, and I want to normalize saying I love you to people. I was really like, uh, my daughters, ever since they were in like middle school or maybe even younger, would always say I love you to their friends. They see you later. I love you too. And I think that's beautiful. I think that's a beautiful thing, a beautiful statement to express. We put so much baggage on it. We confuse it with oftentimes only with romantic love. But we know, like, I can say, I love you to my daughters, and I can say, I love you to my cat. And that's not the same thing. In fact, the spiritual definition of love, the closest thing that most people experience to it is when they have children. And you love your children. Hopefully you love your children unconditionally, right? No matter what they do, no matter how naughty they act, or if my daughter once took a Sharpie and drew on the hardwood floor with it, um, you still love them. That doesn't go away, right? And that's closer to spiritual love than most other things that we say are love. So we say things like I love my coffee this morning. I love my cat. I love you. I, have romantic love. I have familial love. I love my children. Those are not all the same thing. Pregnant women shouldn't do breath work. I was wondering if there's any other spiritual restrictions for pregnant women. So the reason why pregnant women shouldn't do certain breath work is physical and not spiritual. It's because things like, particularly breath work that involves, and I'm not a doctor, so I'm not giving medical advice, um, uh, but particularly things that involve breath holds can affect the blood pressure, and that is and the heart rate and all kinds of things. And so that when I was studying breath work, they're like, pregnant women can't do this. So oh, you tried to send it as a chat. Huh. Interesting. Oh gosh. I hope. Thank you for doing that. I don't know. I don't know how that works. Unfortunately, I can't really describe it. So I'm not sure what to tell you about that. May God bless you as well. Thank you for that. That's very lovely. It's a lovely sentiment. Yeah. So I use, when I'm on here streaming. When I'm on here streaming, I'm using software. I'm not in the interface, right? And so all of the chat messages that come through both from Facebook and YouTube and other channels come through the same interface. So I don't know how that works. I would say, if there's something you want to send me privately, just email me or send me a message or something. Because it might, certainly it'll just show up in chat here. So, but thank you. I hope I get the $5. I don't. Yeah, don't like, if you just want to send me a message, you don't have to spend $5. Just send me a message. But the cat is trying to get my coffee. No coffee for you, kitty. You're too young to be drinking coffee. Good morning. Good morning. My coffee is amazing. It's very strong this morning. I put a little too much in, but that's okay. Thank you for your amazing sentiment. I really appreciate it. And I appreciate you. I appreciate you for being here. And I want to say this from the bottom of my heart. I don't care who you are. People get weirded out by this, and I'm sorry if this weirds you out, but I love you. I do. And I saw this meme and I really, really loved it. I loved it. That said, if people can hate others who they have never met, then I can love others who I have never met. And that makes much more sense to me than hatred. Or, not caring or any of those things. So I'm going to get into love. I'm going to get into spiritual love, and I'm going to tell you this, even though I don't know you, you deserve more love. You deserve more love, not less. There are many in the cultures that we live in the world that we live in the social media that we enjoy, and sometimes enjoy. There are many, many messages telling us that we are unworthy. In fact, unworthiness is a core wound that most people have. And I want to undo that. I want to do my part to undo that. And I want to spread the message that I don't care who you are, what you have done in your past. I don't care what race, religion, gender identity, sexuality, anything. You are worthy of love. Simply from the fact that you exist. You exist, you are worthy of love. That's it. That's the only criteria, right? Do you exist? Yes, that's my criteria. You are worthy of love. I feel like most of the ills in the world, crime, drug addiction, suicides, things like that, have a core cause, a core causality in this core wound, in this wound of feeling unworthy of love or feeling unloved. You are very welcome. Oh, well, thank you. I appreciate you always being the first person to wish me good morning on the lives. I do. It always makes me smile. So often we're told that love, our worthiness of love, is conditional, right? That got to do this, you have to do that. If you didn't, if you don't make enough money, if you don't have the right job, if you don't look the right way, if you aren't physically healthy, if you aren't whatever. I'm going to tell you right now that all of that is bullshit. All of it. All of it. Any of those conditions is bullshit. And when you start thinking that way, here's a secret spiritual technique. I'm going to teach you right now, right here, because you deserve it. When you start thinking that way, when you start thinking, oh, I'm unworthy, it might not be in those words, but, oh, I'm so this, or I'm so that, or I'm this and that, and you're beating yourself up. In your head, you don't have to do it out loud, but you can if you want. Yell bullshit. That's it. Bullshit. I'm not taking that from you. You're so welcome. But it's true, right? Like, spiritual love, real love, agape, right? Love, biblical love, all of the, the love of source, the love of God, the love of the universe. You exist. You exist. Like, that is the universe accepting you. And we're all, like, in our humanness, we are all flawed, right? We're all human. I got a weird body, man, and I got weird thoughts, and my brain works. I was late to this morning because of my ADHD. I kid you not, I was like, I set up the live and I went to go make coffee, and then I'm like, oh, I really should clean the toilet in the downstairs bathroom. So I apologize if people, if my signal, it said that my connection was lost and I went up having to refresh. So only black screen now. Well, let me know if I come back. I don't, see if I can turn my camera on and off. Can you still hear me though? Technology, man, I tell you. Well, let me know if you can see me or just hear me or both or neither. I'm back. Yay. Okay. Triumph of technology. Yeah, that was weird. That has never happened. I've been using this streaming software for quite a long time. So anyway, excellent. Thank you so much for letting me know. I appreciate it. Yeah, I don't know what happened. Like, it came up with this yellow box that said connection lost. So maybe, an internet hiccup, but I'm on TikTok never stopped. TikTok and you don't stop. Isn't that a song? Probably, right? I'm gonna adjust my camera a little bit. All right, back on track. I'll reel the ADHD brain back in. So, honestly, I was talking about love. I was talking about you deserving more love, not less. You deserve more love. And I'm talking about unconditional love. You deserve love because you exist, period. There are no conditions on that, none whatsoever. And I do think that shame and feeling shame, the feeling of unworthiness, the feeling we all have a shame complex, because you can't really be raised in our cultures and with parents and with education and exposed to the media and not hear about how unworthy you are, or it's maybe not a direct message, but it's certainly implied, right? Think about advertising. I don't consume. I mean, I have to on social media, but I don't watch TV with advertising generally, and things like that. But think about all the messages in advertising, right? All the airbrushed models, and everything is perfect, and people's clothes are always perfectly pressed. And there's a really subtle, unconscious message about what's good and what is not good, what's perfect and what is not perfect, and all of these things. Hello, how are you? Welcome to the live. We're talking about love today. We're talking about spiritual love, or as I refer to it, real love. And there's nothing wrong with romantic love. There's nothing wrong. The issue, in my opinion, in my strong opinion, and in my excellent, glad to see you. Love that. I love that you love that. How's that? We're having a love fest today, friends. So there's nothing wrong with romantic love. I love romantic love. Who doesn't? The issue with it, as our sometimes sole definition of love, is that romantic love is often transactional or conditional, right? I will stop loving you if you do this, or I will only love you as long as you do this. And that's fine. You don't want to be in a romantic relationship with somebody who is abusive, for example, or, et cetera, et cetera. But I can honestly say that, I've had relationships come and go, and I still love the person that I was in the relationship with. It's that the relationship is not for me, right? And so often when we break up with somebody or whatever, the relationship ends, there's like hatred. How dare you? And the reason for that, often, very often, not always, but the main reason for that is that person hurt my feelings by breaking up with me. They told me that I'm not worthy of their romantic love. But we can still love and accept them, and we can forgive them. And I will talk a little bit about forgiveness. I've talked about forgiveness in the past. This is a phrase, if I could burn anything into people's brains, this would be it. Forgiveness is freedom. Forgiveness is not letting the other person off the hook. Forgiveness is not inviting abusive people back into our lives. Forgiveness is letting go of a strong negative emotional charge we have towards another person. Even if that strong negative emotional charge is righteous and well-deserved, I'm really angry at that person because they did something hurtful to me, that's understandable. However, hanging on to that anger is not healthy. It is not serving you. And our ego, our conditioned mind, will say, if you let go of that anger, you will become unsafe. Hanging on to that anger is like that's an armor. I'm using this emotional armor to shield you from this person. And that's just not true, right? You can forgive somebody and not all of a sudden get stupid and let them back into your lives. Like, oh, this person was abusive to me. I'm going to forgive them for that, but I don't want them to be a part of my life anymore, because that doesn't make sense. That's not what forgiveness means. We can forgive without forgetting. Here's Phoebe. She wants to say hi. She loves you guys. She always jumps up in my lap during the live so she can say hello. She's looking a little sleepy. It's warm, and she has got a thick fur coat. In fact, I will give you a little brush today, my little kitty friend. So this is Phoebe, the shaman cat. She's always jumping up in my lap when I'm on lives and talking to folks and stuff like that. So, anywho, um, so forgiveness is important, and forgiveness is something. Oh man, don't put your tail on my coffee. I will forgive Phoebe for that, and I will still love her no matter what. Um, just had a beautiful baby boy and named him Justice, and I didn't realize this is banned. It's a banned name in New Zealand. Oh, interesting. That's really interesting. I didn't know there was such a thing as banned names. I guess in some countries there are names that you can't name children. In the U.S., anything goes. So like Elon Musk named his kid like X372C or something like that. Um, Interesting. I'd be curious to find out more about that. So you're in New Zealand. Welcome from New Zealand. That's pretty awesome. I don't. I definitely have people on here from Australia, but I don't know that I've ever had anybody in my life from New Zealand. So, but you are very welcome to this live, and nice to see you. New Zealand is definitely on my. I was just talking about New Zealand with my friends who were visiting, who honeymooned in New Zealand, and they absolutely love it. Yes. So sometimes you have to do that, right? So you realize you're in a relationship with somebody, and it's not healthy for you to be in a relationship with them, and so you end the relationship. But and maybe the romantic feelings go away, right? Um, the romantic feelings might disappear. You might not no longer, date the person or see them in that way, but you can still love the person, right? You can still accept them for their, not just, you don't have to ignore their flaws, but flaws. But people have mental health stuff. Good. Yes. Yeah. Be strong. And so, a really important part of love, and spiritual love is loving yourself, right? Loving and respecting yourself and taking care of yourself, understanding your boundaries and being strong there, right? Understand that romantic feelings, um, romantic feelings are primarily dopamine related, right? When we see somebody, we get this, and oxytocin, right? We see someone and we get this feeling of, this warm feeling, this our reward center in our brain is triggered. Um, that's different than spiritual love, which is this complete acceptance of the other person, holding space for that person. So I always say that, if you want to, yeah, so I get that. And you deserve to be treated with love. You have the right, in my opinion, you have the right to determine how people treat you. And if people are not treating you with love and acceptance and respecting boundaries, you have a right to set a firm boundary on that. Because you're a human being, you have sovereignty over yourself, over your mind and your body. And that's an important lesson. It's a hard one, because I don't mean to go down the relationship path too much, because it's a little bit outside of what I intended to talk about today, but I'm happy to do that. It's a hard one because, very often when you set a boundary, when you say this is not okay, people take offense to that and will treat you like you're the problem, right? When nobody necessarily is. I mean, it could be, but nobody's necessarily the problem. It's just, this is a boundary. This is a thing that I don't accept as behavior towards me. This is a way I don't allow people to speak to me. This is a way I don't allow people to treat me. It's interesting. Had this conversation before, with somebody I was intimate with, and I was like, they asked me about something, and I'm like, well, I'm okay with that from you, but would you be okay with that for me? And they were like, oh, how could you say that to blah blah blah? And I'm like, no, I'm asking the question. I'm trying to determine where the boundary is. The behavior. I don't know. I want to know how you want to be treated. Oh, good morning, Northern California. How's the weather in Northern California? It's hot in Maine right now. I'm in Maine, and um, it's like 90 something degrees already, and like the heat index is like 11 degrees warmer because it's humid. I think it's going to cool down in the next few days, but we've had a real heat wave up here. It's totally unusual for Maine. Um, but yeah, it's been super hot. So we're talking about love, my favorite topic, one of my favorite topics, definitely probably my favorite topic. But I always say that the way, if you want to experience more love, the way to do that is not to seek it externally, right? I want to feel, I want to feel loved is great. But when we seek it externally, then we're dependent upon those external sources for whatever we've determined the feeling of love is. But if you want to feel more love, if you want to experience more love, the way to do that, the most reliable way to do that is to um, become more loving. Oh, triple digit highs. That's yeah. Wow, that's hot. The hottest I've ever been was in California. It was in Enza Borrego. It was like 120 something, 121 or 122 during the day. It was out there in the summer. That was something. That's an experience. Las Vegas was pretty hot too. 100, I think about 116 when I was in Las Vegas one time. Those are some temps. But the humidity is the humidity always does me in, and it makes my hair do these waves. I don't know. I should get my hair cut. um, so the way to experience more love in your life is to become more loving. How do we do that? Well, we start by intending it. So here's a little thing you can do, and so when you wake up in the morning, you make an intention. An intention is a thought that directs energy towards a goal, towards a desired goal. Yeah, I've been to Vegas, I think twice in the summer. It is like you can, cook eggs on the sidewalk kind of temperature. Um, Crazy hot. And you walk by the casinos and the door and like the sliding doors open and you get blasted with this like freezing cold air. Just what a crazy place Las Vegas is. I haven't been there it's been a few years. I'm not a gambler, but I like shows and things and food. I like food a whole lot, and there's a lot of really good food in Las Vegas. Um, so so you wake up in the morning and you intend to to go through your day being as loving as you possibly can. Again, this doesn't mean you become a doormat. It doesn't mean you don't have boundaries. I can set boundaries in a loving way. I can say, I love you, but this is not okay to speak to me this way, or this is not okay to treat me this way. We can be loving when we set boundaries. We don't have to do it hatefully. And if you set boundaries in a loving way, they are more likely to be accepted without trouble by the other person. Right? I accept you. I accept that this is something you want, but this is a boundary for me, and I love you, but this is not going to be okay. So set the intention in the morning when you wake up. Today I'm going to live my life and be as loving as I possibly can. Yeah, it sets an example, but also on a physical and spiritual level, we are putting energy out into the world. A really interesting thing to me is that our heart and our brain both give off electromagnetic pulses, signals. You can detect them with equipment like, people know we have EEGs and EKGs, right? That can electrically, yes, better for your energy overall, absolutely. But also the energy we put out into the world. So the brain gives off energy that can be detected outside of the skull, right? That's how electroencephalographs work. But the heart gives off energy that the energy field of the heart is hundreds of times stronger from the outside than the energy of the brain. We think of the brain as this big electric, like computer, and it kind of is. It's chemical electric, but the heart is very electrical. And in research studies, they show that people who are in proximity to each other, their heart rates start to coincide. They start to what we call entrain and pulse at the same rate, right? So they're uh, start to synchronize through entrainment. So if you're out there, and our heart rate often, our heart rate and our heart rhythm, and there's a Heart Math Institute that has studied this, actually shows, and I don't want to say betrays, but shows what our state is. Yes. When you truly love yourself, you find compassion for the world. Love is always the answer. I agree completely. Yes, in sync. So you can sync, your heart rate will sync. So one of the ways, we also have mirror neurons. So when we see people behaving in a certain way, we start to behave in a certain way. So the way you show up in the world, just strictly on a physical level, spiritual level is a whole other thing. Absolutely. But just on a physical level, the way you show up in the world affects the people around you, affects the animals around you, it affects the plants around you, right? It affects, experimentally we've shown this, it affects it affects the way matter shows up in the universe. Happy hump day to you as well. I should have a camel on my logo when I do these on Wednesdays, right? Or something. Very happy hump day to you. This is my excellently divine friend, Brienne. We actually live in the same town, and our daughters graduated from high school together. And what a, hump day, what a great day to talk about love. We will talk about love. So, so when we show up in the world in a peaceful and loving way, we create more peaceful and loving environment for others. So, and people will react to that. We've all been in a room where somebody walks into the room and the energy gets tense all of a sudden, or somebody sucks the energy out of the room, or somebody walks into the room and everybody starts laughing, not at the person, but like the energy changes. Be that person. You don't have to be an extrovert or a leader or a public speaker or anything. Just have the intention that I am going to positively affect the energy of any room I walk into and anybody I encounter. Right? Thank you. Have that intention. Intention drives the bus. Intention is what determines determines where we go and what we do. So intention is a thought that directs energy towards a desired goal. So if I want to get up from my seat and go open the door, I have the intention, go open the door. Maybe not verbally, but I hold that intention. That intention directs energy, the energy from my brain to move my muscles, the chemical energy, the ATP and my muscle fibers, to move and go open the door. Everything we do has some intention behind it, even if the intention is unconscious. So if we want to be more conscious of the way that we show up in the world, it is important to set and hold intention. We can do this in every interaction we have with other people. We can intend to be, I am going to be as loving as possible in this conversation, even if it is a difficult conversation, even if I have to set boundaries, even if I have to cut off a relationship with somebody, even if I have to, whatever it is. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. That's a lovely, that's a lovely comment. And I don't know, I blush a little bit with compliments. I don't know if you can tell because I've got a tan right now, and I'm shiny. It's very sweaty here right now. It's warm and warm and humid here today. So again, if you want to experience more love, you show up as more loving, and it will affect people's interactions with you. Will it make every person that you come into contact with fall in love with you? Probably not. Hasn't happened to me yet. But it will make things easier. I'll tell you a good story. This is a Jedi mind trick story of mine. This happened to me back in college. I was in college in Boston, and I was taking a class in documentary production, and I was working on worked on several small documentaries, and I was working with this grad student who was producing a documentary about an artist, a painter from Boston, and this was a million years ago, so there were no cell phones. There was no email. No cell phones, no email. Can you believe that? I lived in the Stone Ages. So what I had a telephone. I had a landline with an answering machine. And that's how we got in touch. And if I wasn't there, I missed the call. So I was trying to find out when I was supposed to meet up with my partner to go do a shoot. And she was going to call me. And I'll skip a bunch of details, but I'll try to make a long story short. But it was getting late, and the cafeteria was about to close, and I hadn't eaten dinner. So I'm like, okay, I'm just going to run down and grab something and then come back. So I did. I ran down. I was gone about a half an hour, got dinner, came back, and I had missed her call. She happened. As these things happen, she called just then. I missed her call. She left a message, called her back. She had already left for the shoot, didn't know where to meet her, had no way of getting in touch with her. So I had class 8 o'clock the next morning with her, and I show up, and she's fuming. And she says, "I'm very angry." I said, "Okay." And I formed the intention. I'm going to sit here and just be loving towards this person. I'm going to direct nothing but positive energy towards this person. I'm going to let her say whatever she wants to say, and I'm not going to react in a negative way to her. So I sat facing her, and she starts going off. She's like angry. We're going to fail the class. We didn't fail the class. We're going to fail the class. I depended on you. You weren't there when I called. There was no I wasn't saying anything. I was just listening and holding space and directing loving thoughts towards her. And after about a minute of ranting at me, she starts to wind down. Her emotion is used up or has come out. She's expressed it. And she, her words start becoming calmer and more peaceful. And then I've said nothing. I'm making eye contact. I'm holding space for her. I'm projecting loving thoughts towards her. She eventually stops. She pauses and says, "I'm sorry. Are you mad at me?" Asking me if I'm mad at her. Right? And I said, "No, I'm not mad at you at all. I understand why you're so upset. I'm sorry that I missed your call, and I did try to call you back, and whatever. And then we could have a conversation, and then we went and finished the documentary and passed the class, and the rest is history, right?" But very often when somebody is attacking us, we get reactive. We get into defensive mode, and we become we close off, and we attack back so that they can't do damage to us or whatever. This is not to say that I would sit there and take abuse from somebody. I wouldn't. When in times where people have become abusive with me, verbally abusive or physically abusive, I'm ending this conversation and walk away. After that person has time to calm down, I may return to the conversation and say, "I know you're upset, but it is not okay to talk to me that way. And we can talk about what's upsetting you. But if you talk to me that way again, the conversation is over." That's a boundary, and we can set it in a loving way. Now, I understand this woman was upset with me because she perceived that I didn't, her perception was I didn't care about our project or something like that. But also, part of her upset was coming from this fear that had nothing to do with me. And that fear came from, I'm going to fail this class. I'm going to not do well. I'm going to, whatever the consequences, whatever the train of thought was where that happened. So part of me, understood where that angry energy was coming from that was directed at me. And sometimes, I will say that sometimes I try to be what I refer to as a safe person, meaning people can tell me anything they want. People can emote with me. People tell me all kinds of stuff. And I never share it with anyone. And that's important. We need to have safe people in our lives that we repress so much of ourselves. And not just the angry stuff. There are wonderful parts of ourselves that we repress as well, right? People are sometimes afraid to share their art for being criticized, or share their hopes and dreams for somebody shooting them down, to share their secret desires because they're going to be judged or shamed for them. And that happens, right? I have to think about what I can talk about here. I'll think about what I can talk about here for a moment. But, somebody might say to me, "Oh man, I've really always wanted to play the piano, but my parents told me I wasn't musical and people are going to laugh at me or whatever." I'm like, just go take piano lessons. Who cares? I'll come. You have a recital, I'll come to it. You have a show, I'll come to it. You do whatever. If you're in my life, I'm your number one fan. And that's my goal. So, and I think we need to become like that, because there's so much pressure shooting people down. And think about what kind of world we would live in if people felt comfortable sharing their art, sharing their hopes and dreams, sharing their secret desires, sharing their pain, without being judged, without being shut down, without being, think about what kind of world. So that's love, right? There's a meme recently, I'm going to paraphrase, I don't remember the exact quote, but it said, the loudest way you can love somebody is by encouraging them to be safe and comfortable in their own skin. And what a beautiful sentiment. That is love, right? That is love, but it's also like we can take an active role in love. We can say, I love you, and I might not share your hopes and dreams. There might not be my hopes and dreams, but they're your hopes and dreams, and they're valuable. The life you want to live, that's valuable. The things you love, that's valuable. It's not for me to judge them. What brings you joy, that's valuable. As long as you're not harming somebody else, I will be there supporting you. I may not understand it, whatever, but that's fine. I don't have to understand it. I don't have to be just like you to love you, right? That's another thing. So I've been on the dating scene a couple times recently, and it's really weird when you're 52 and you're trying to find people to date, and you go like, the last time I'd been on the dating scene was in like the 90s, 95, 96, right? There's a whole different world out there. Before you would like meet somebody, you would hang out and find out if you were compatible and all of those things. And now you go on these like dating websites, and it's like resumes. You're like reading, you're like, oh, I need a person. And most people are really particular. I'm looking for a guy who's 6 feet tall and has a beard and blue eyes and rides a motorcycle and goes fishing and blah, 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 and blah, 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 blah. Instead of thinking about the kind of relationship that they want. We get really locked into types, like really specific types of people. And a lot of that is physical, which is fine, it's great to be attracted to somebody, but what kind of relationship are you building? What kind of relationship do you want? Think about that. And people don't often, in my experience, think about that. And it's funny to me, a lot of dating profiles out there are like, if you're a no good, lousy, 2-bit, cheating, lying son of a blah, 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 you can swipe left on me right now. And blah, and I'm like, that's not appealing to me. I'm sorry. I wonder how successful that is. Like, coming off already as like angry and super defensive and stuff like that. So anyway, but that's romantic love. But spiritual love is really just loving everyone, loving every sentient being, not just every person, not just every human person. So my background is in shamanism, and shamanism comes from animism. Animism is the extension of personhood to non-humans. That's the technical definition. So, for example, many people, including me, treat our pets like human beings. I talk to my pets. I understand their emotion. I try to understand their emotional life. I try to understand their needs. Sometimes they act like toddlers. Sometimes they act like, they're my parent trying to herd me or whatever. But also in shamanism, we extend personhood to things like trees and rocks and rivers and forests. In my personal take on animism, everything is a spirit. Good morning to you. Nice to see you again from Fort Lauderdale. All right, here's a good comment. There's someone in my family I love, but they've hurt me really badly and are unrepentant. Yeah. It's made it so sometimes when I feel love, I feel pain. Yes. Do you have any suggestions for these situations? Yeah, I mean, I applaud you for loving them, that they, despite the fact that they've hurt you really badly. I recognize, and I recognize that that's hard, and I want to acknowledge you for that. That must have taken some work to be there, to get there. So yeah, I mean, you definitely want to dissociate the feeling of love, love and pain. I mean, love is not really, we think of love as an emotion, but it really isn't. We can feel love and pain at the same time. We can feel love and joy at the same time. We can feel love and bliss. We can feel love and sadness at the same time. So those aren't necessarily linked, but I would say that it's important to process the pain. However, if you determine that the pain is unpleasant and it's not something you want to feel, it's probably good to process that. And there are a number of ways to do that. You could do that therapeutically. You could do that by doing shadow work and exploring the root source of the pain, going into it. But it is possible to experience love and pain at the same time. I've been there. So I had a relationship end not that long ago, and I would say that we both, actually getting a little emotional thinking about it right now, I would say that we both still love each other, not romantically, but we both still absolutely love each other. It just didn't work out. Right. And in fact, she stopped by yesterday to pick some things up, and we had a great conversation. And I care about how she's doing, and she cares about how I'm doing. I care about her kids, and she cares about my kids, and all of those things. But there's pain there, right? There's pain from the breakup, from the ending of the relationship, or there may be pain from something that somebody did that was hurtful towards you. But you don't have to stop loving them. But yeah, it's good to process the pain. And I would say there are exercises in forgiveness. I don't know your specific situation, but there are exercises in forgiveness that might help you process the pain, dropping that emotional charge of the pain there, so that it sounds like you might have created a link there. So that might be something to work on, to dissociate. So my suggestions would be, find some forgiveness exercises that you can do that work for you, meditations or what have you. I might even have some online. I'm not sure. I can look. Uh, I know I've done videos about forgiveness and led exercises in forgiveness. That would be my number one suggestion. My number two suggestion would be to do some shadow work, because the pain might actually, very often when we feel emotional pain, it's amplified by our past experience, right? So, like, breakups wouldn't bother me so much if I didn't have this history of abandonment, like from my early childhood. Um, this sense, this wound from very early childhood, and I know what it's about because I've done lots of work on it. I still do work on it. I'll never be done doing my own work. That's another thing to understand about self-love, right? Um, oh, thank you so much. Yeah, no, I'm actually fine, and it's fine to have, like, the other thing is, like, we want to resist painful emotions because they suck, because they're painful. Um, but when they come up, welcome them. They are signals. They're signals. They're pointers to unhealed wounds. So for me, it's like, oh, okay, I get a little sad about this. So there's some pain there still. And so there's something for me to work on. It's a signal, right? It's like, oh, thank you, unconscious. Thank you, spirit, for telling me that I've got work to do. I don't think I will ever be done doing in this lifetime, doing the work that I need to do. And so things like getting triggered or having pain, and this is where self-love comes in, right? So when you have challenging or difficult emotions come up for you, it's important not to beat yourself up about that, right? Not to pile on, shame yourself. How dare you feel pain? How dare I am a spiritual being. I float on clouds of unicorn farts or whatever. I don't feel emotional pain. Well, that's just not true, and that is what we call spiritual bypassing. Oh, I'm glad that speaks to you. Yeah. Um, we have to love ourselves enough to feel our pain. That sounds weird, right? But that's how we process it. Repression is bad. Right? I'm going to give you a judgment here. Repression is a bad thing to do. It is bad from the perspective of unhelpful. I'm glad unicorn. I didn't come up with that phrase. That was I was another spiritual teacher I was talking to. Unicorn farts and used the term sparkle pony. I don't know where that comes from, um, but that's called spiritual bypassing. Spiritual bypassing, and we're like, I am too enlightened to experience pain, so I'm just going to repress all my pain. It's really, really unhealthy. I'm going to feel it. I'm going to go through it. I'm here on this earth. I incarnated in this form to have all the full range of human experience that I'm going to experience in this lifetime. That includes emotions that are challenging, that I don't like. Includes lots of things I don't like. I ate some stuff one time, man. I could probably make a lot of people on this thing sick. Like, I've eaten some stuff overseas that I'll never do that again, I'll tell you, and consider myself brave for trying in the first place. But I've done all kinds of unpleasant things, and that's okay. It's not the end of the world, and pain is not the end of the world. It can feel like it, and our ego screams at us. Our ego's like, don't feel that. It's horrible. You're gonna die if you feel that pain. It's not true. You're gonna feel it. You're gonna allow it to come up. You're gonna welcome it, and it's gonna pass, because that's what emotion does. Emotion's like a wave. You'll find, like, emotion will crest and fall and crest and fall and crest and fall, but only if you allow it to. If you press on it, it's going to stay in one place, and you're not going to heal. So, but my teacher would always say, how can we be grateful for the difficult times? How can we be grateful for the difficult experiences that we go through? And I think that becoming grateful for the challenges. Here's Phoebe again. Hi. Don't walk my keyboard, please. I would really like to train my cat not to thwap me in the face with her tail, but I think it's her favorite activity. So it's probably not going to happen. She's like, you are not paying attention to me. And I'm just slightly allergic to my cat. So, and here's a good example, right? So I'm slightly allergic to my cat. She makes me sneeze. It makes my nose itch when she like flaps me in the face with her tail. But I love her, so I'm not gonna get rid of my cat. And I know people who take allergy meds so they can have pets and all kinds of stuff. I'm not gonna get rid of her. So yeah, repression is unhelpful. Yes, yes, yes. Repression is really unhelpful, really unhealthy. It's more than unhelpful. It's hurtful, right? And if you're embarrassed to express your emotions, that's fine, right? Like you don't want to be seen as vulnerable in front of people or whatever. It's fine. You can do that on your own. You can sit. There's nothing wrong with sitting in your room and crying or whatever you need to do. But there is something really healing, really incredibly healing about somebody sitting and holding space for you, which means when I do this with people, with clients or just people I know and I love, and somebody is going through a tough time, I just sit and witness. Having that witness, that non-judging witness in the room with you while you are going through a tough experience is incredibly healing. You do not have to go through 7 years of training as a shamanic healer to do that for somebody. You right now can sit with somebody. Very often what happens when somebody is experiencing pain, and I'm as guilty of this as anyone, is we want to fix it. I'm a fixer, right? This person's crying and we want to go up and pat them on the back and say, oh, it's going to get better. We want to say things that are going to make them feel better. And I would say resist that temptation. If somebody's having a tough time, ask, and they want to have you around them, say, would it be okay if I just sat with you and just sit with them in silence? If they're talking to you about their problems, ask them, are you interested in, don't give advice unless they ask for it. But if you're not sure, ask them, are you looking for advice, or would you just want me to sit with you and listen to you? Because I'm happy either way. I'm your friend and I love you, and I'm here for you. Really often, again, totally guilty of this in my life. I'm working on being better about it. Very often we want to jump in and fix whatever somebody's emotional issue is, and most of the time we can't, or we don't make it better, or we make them feel unheard, or we trivialize their problems. So like, oh, I guess that's not okay. It's not really safe to feel pain around this person, right? So we call this holding space or holding sacred space for somebody. And this was, this was a rule throughout my shamanic training. So my first training was an apprenticeship. So we had a group of apprentices with my teacher, and we sit in circle. That's traditional. And my teacher had some very strict rules for sitting in circle. And one of those was, we don't rescue people. There are many times over the process of the apprenticeship in which challenging emotions come up for people. It happened to me. I almost quit my very first day because I was having overwhelmingly strong emotions during my apprenticeship. And we don't rescue people. We hold space for them. When we rescue, we are taking away their power. We are saying, oh, poor you. We're giving sympathy, not empathy. Instead, if somebody was having a difficult time, somebody was breaking down, crying, whatever, we would sit with them while they did that. The most we would do would be offer tissues to them if somebody was crying or something along those lines. But we wouldn't, oh, poor you. You are so welcome. It is my absolute pleasure, and it is a joy to hold space for others. It is when you do it, when you really do it, and you see and you feel how healing that is for other people. It's so rewarding. It's why I do this work, right? I'm selfish. I do this work because it feels good, you know. Um, I mean, I hope I'm not totally selfish, but inner child work, yeah. I have done some of that, especially if there's what they call like inner parenting and reparenting, where like you essentially become your own ideal parent and take care of the child part of yourself, which I guess is part of inner child work. All of that stuff is incredibly helpful, very powerful work. Sorry, my nose and upper lip are itchy from the cat. Love my cat, but don't love, don't, don't like the itchy nose, but I love my cat. Um, but yeah, so hold space for somebody. Um, here's a, here's a, this will be a little spicy, but it's part of, this is a conversation I've had with intimate partners before. If you've ever done the thing where you've sat down and you sort of like traded fantasies, right? This is what I fantasize about. This is what I fantasize about. Well, in my experience, people tend to hold back parts of themselves because they're worried about, oh, I'm going to like say something that's gone too far, or I'm going to say something and my partner's going to go, ew, yuck, like that's gross. I don't know you anymore, and whatever. So when you're sharing that stuff, start by saying to them, what's a fantasy that you have that like even like something that really strongly is there, even if it's something you think I would never do, or that you would never actually do, because people have desires and fantasies that they would never act out. Like, what's something that you would ever do? And that conversation, and you can it doesn't have to be so it doesn't have to be romantic partners. You can also ask about people's desire. What's something you've always desired to do? It doesn't have to be sexual, could be, but it doesn't have to be. What's something you've always desired to do, even if it's something like you would never actually do? Like, I've always wanted to parachute, and I don't know that I actually will, just because of I was going to when I was in my youth, and then I had kids, and it just seems like, intellectually, it seems like a risky thing to do when you have children. Maybe I will, but so that's a desire that I have that I haven't acted upon and may never act upon, but that's something I can share. But you can open up conversations with people. That way, my dog is whining at me. What's going on? Hi, Juno. Hey, sweetie pie. She's gonna have fun because the puppy we're fostering is coming over today, and they love to play. Good morning. Oh yeah. Well, you can definitely catch the replay if you want to catch the beginning. I'm glad you're here as well. We are talking about love from a spiritual perspective, and giving self-love and giving love to others, showing up in the world in a more loving way. Yeah, so one of the holding space, I was talking about holding space for people. It is one of the most healing things ever. So I had a client, and I don't give details, like personal details away to anyone, of any client or student of mine ever. But I had a client who was having some issues with self-acceptance. We'll put it that way. And worked with this client. I've worked with this client for a couple of years now. Every few months or so, they might contact me. And this client said something to me that, like, I could not have gotten a better compliment. It wasn't really meant as like to pump up my ego, but it melted my heart when I got this from this client. And this client said to me, I have never felt so comfortable being myself with anybody than I have with you. And that includes my therapist, that includes, my family. And I was like stunned and shocked, because yeah, it's not necessarily a compliment, like you're such a great guy, you've got cool eyebrows or whatever. um it was just like that hit me in the heart, because that's what I want. That's what I want to be for people. And it, I think like this happened a few years ago, and in that moment I'm like, that's my mission. That's part of my life's work, is to make people be as comfortable as they can being themselves. And if I can only do that, like in person when people are around me or whatever, fine. That will be my contribution. But if I can do it on a larger scale, and if I can encourage people to do that, to help do that for other people, that will be the impact that I live in the world, to help people be more comfortable being who they are, being in their own skin. There's so many messages we have about you're not okay, you're not worthy, you're not thin enough or tall enough or good looking enough, you're not young enough, you're not wealthy enough, you have the wrong color skin, you worship at the wrong church, you went to the wrong university, or you didn't go to university, or you did this or you did that. I'm talking to you, whoever you are divine soul, no less and no more than the creator of this universe. You co-create this universe. You are divine, and you are worthy of love. You are worthy of self-love. You are worthy of being a co-creator of this world. And I know that because you are. That's what you are. That is the natural order of things. You exist. This universe has room for you. You're an important, integral part of this universe. You are creating this reality. You're co-creating it with all of us. And so you should not only feel comfortable in your own skin, but if you're a little weird like me, I say embrace that. Weird is cool. Think about like where all the best music has come from. Mozart was weird. Beethoven was weird. Prince was weird, right? Think about where all the great art comes from. Salvador Dali was a weirdo. Leonardo da Vinci was arrested a couple times. Think about where all the greatness in the universe, the greatness in that we have in our lives, comes from the weird. Yes, perfectly imperfect. I love that phrase too. You are uniquely you. There is no human being on this planet that is like you. There's no human being that has ever lived, that will ever live, that is exactly like you. Even my daughters are identical twins. They're genetically identical. They're completely different human beings. Anybody who doesn't think so, spend 5 minutes with them. Have a conversation. Their things they like are different. Their hopes and dreams are different. There are similarities. They're still both 17-year-old girls living in the same house and raised by the same parents and all of those things. So there are some similarities like that, but they have been different since they were born, since the day they were born. I remember going in. They were premature. They're fairly premature, but and we went in. They were in the NICU for a while in Boston, and going in the first day after the day they were born, going into the NICU to see them, and they had their charts on their incubators, and Sophia's chart said, Sophia is feisty. And that has been true ever since, right? But yeah, you are whole, complete, and perfect. And you can think about all the ways, we can think about all the like, oh, my body is not what I want it to be, and I'm not as smart as I want to be, and I don't have as much money as I want, and I have this and that and this and that and this and that. That's ego. That's your ego. You are not your ego. You're not the collections of stories that you tell about yourself. You're not a collection of beliefs that you have about yourself. You are pure divine source at your core. When you peel back the layers of ego, when you peel back the layer of junk that we have been conditioned to believe about ourselves. And because of that, you are as worthy of love as any being, as any sentient being. Right? So, anyway, I've got to run, get going, and it's been nice to connect with so many new folks and so many familiar folks who've been on here before. Great to see my friends on here. Still scratching my nose from the cattail assault on my nose earlier. But I hope you all have a great Wednesday. Happy Hump Day, and tune in. I'm considering something very strongly, and I'm going to run it by some folks. But if you're somebody who comes on here regularly, I'm thinking about. I built an online community before, but it was only for people who practice shamanism, because I was looking for people to kind of get together and practice with and teach together and stuff like that. But I'm thinking about building an online. Oh, you're so welcome. You're so welcome. And you are so welcome as well. So I'm thinking about building another online community, but making it more open. And, I would still do talks like this and stuff, but it would be an opportunity for people to network more and to actually for me to bring in other teachers and stuff like that. So yes, you have a beautiful day. Yeah, they are love taps, so I can't get angry about that. I just get sneezy about that. They were absolutely love taps from the cat. But yes, everybody have a beautiful, fantastic day. But I would like to hear from people. If you follow me on social media, drop me a comment or send me an email or talk to me. If you know me in real life, talk to me in real life. If you are at all interested in joining some kind of online spiritual community, not a religion, nothing like that, just sort of something like this, but where more people could communicate together and that sort of thing. What kinds of things would you be interested? So it would include things like courses and special interest rooms and stuff like that. So think about that. I'm going to put it out in the universe and see what the universe tells me, but also what people who may be interested tell me. So anyway, with that, I'll leave you all for the day. Love